problems because you cannot program and reprogram like that of the microprocessor. So it did not have the agility what the microprocessor had, but nevertheless it will soon have them. And that agility will come from what is called as the do-it-all device. This is an e-book reader. This is an internet surfer. This is a telephone. This is a multimedia machine. This can be any damn thing, or in other words, it is a personal digital assistant. It can become anything, whatever you want. What is the technology? It has got a two-layer technology. One, an array of universal logic gates. An array of universal logic gates. Now, universal logic gates are those which can do the function of any of the logical elements in the truth table. Yes? So, therefore, you can do any function just by trying to organize the arrangement of this in a particular manner or fashion by using data available in the memory, just like a computer uploads itself when you switch on. Right? And that's the technology. For example, if we go to the analog counterpart of this, then I can tell you that if you have P and N junction, it's a diode. It's the fundamental universal element of semiconductor. It's a diode. It is the barrier which creates the diode action. Now you have two diodes back to back. What does it form? A transistor. Now transistor, if you properly or appropriately bias, then in that case, it can give you gain. And that is called amplification. But if you give a feedback in the same circuit by appropriately considering the phase and amplitude, is not amplitude, is not phase, and in that case, you can get an oscillator. And if you are adventurous enough, you can also even tune it. So therefore, the fundamental logic element is an array. The simple is, I can bring it even more down further, like you and I are humans. I can become a doctor, I can become an engineer, or I can be a roadside loafer. Right? It is what I learn, and it is how you bias and connect them which gives you that function. That's how it works. So this is what it is. So silicons reach its limit, and unless and until there is a paradigm shift in the technologies relating to software, nothing else is going to end. So watch out for the software breakdown event. One question that I think, do I have the time or should I continue? Okay. Okay, so that is where, so I think the death of microprocessor is confirmed, right? This technology cannot give you those scales, those proportions or those quantum jumps necessary in order to produce information on the table at the rate at which it is envisaged. And that's the reason why we have to explore a new opportunity. But right now, the issuance is only because of software productivity. So the software landscape needs to be reconsidered because this is going to take a time. And if a breakthrough happens, then everything, there will be a paradigm shift and need sets to zero, and we actually transcend into the next new era. So the question remains, what about parallelism? So going parallel, I would like you to draw your attention back to the orders of magnitude when the transactions were happening from 2019 to 2020, where 1 MMIPS instructions were to be. So that time, the improvements in parallelism is definitely there. But remember, that is limited to small scale processors only. It is not limited. I mean, it is limited to small scale parallel processing only. But to large scale, you need something else. Because when the quantum jumps relating to 1 million instructions per second are called for, this technology will not give you that option at all, for reasons which we have already walked through. So therefore, an example of this is seen in the superscalar RISC sets, chipsets, that is reduced instruction chipsets, right? Where they were employing 4 to 5 parallel lines. And remember, when they were employing 4 to 5 parallel lines, they definitely multiplied it by effectively by that amount. But not necessarily. It also depends on the architecture, and considerable area was considered in the real estate. Now, where is the real estate area if I have to draw the lines on the chip? So therefore, those jumps, when you want 1 MMIPS, this technology will not help you. And that's the reason why parallelism is no more the answer. However, the most significant of problems with parallelism, perhaps the death of parallelism, was already forecasted much before it had already been brought into practice by Amdahl and Gustav von Baer's speed-up law. Right? So therefore, now the question here is, given the state of affairs what we are in today, how can the software engineering applications take advantage of this hardware parallelism and give you better performance or economies of scale? No, not economies, but better performance. How? Now, for that, the next alternative, next. So therefore, we'll have to explore the next alternative. Now, in order to explore the next alternative, the limits of parallelism has put in further roadblocks to the advancement in the technology and the performances. So therefore, the third alternative would be the concept of which you are all a part of it, at least those who are practicing and who are professional in the field will be able to appreciate this. The concept of uncoordinated, globally distributed parallel systems are happening, and that is called as the mega computer. Why it is called mega computer? I'll tell you. It has got various names. Various business, various research labs have given various names, but end of the day, it is called a mega computer. At least we call it, or I call it. Now, this mega computer has got 3 components. It is uncoordinated, first characteristic. It is globally distributed, its second characteristics, and third, it works in parallel. Right? Now, such computers already exist in the form of asynchronous nodes on the net. I repeat, such computers already exist in the form of asynchronous nodes on the internet, right? But that they are yet to be exploited. But the fact that they are yet to be exploited, right, to their fullest extent, there are a lot of research people and labs who are exploiting this. Now, the small scale symmetric multiprocessors, which you all know about, I am asking about the RISC and all those. Now, the small scale symmetric multiprocessors in a single box, single component, right, it can contain up to 1, 2 or even right up to 32 processors, at least I have known. And 64 is no more a fantasy now. You have the 32-bit and 64-bit and all those things coming up. So I have seen that small scale symmetric multiprocessors are available in a single package box from 1 up to 32 processors, and they exist. And they are being used in transactions-oriented applications. I repeat, they are being used in transaction-oriented applications which are going to be similar, or this is going to be very similar to the kinds of application that will, or some of them are presently functioning on the internet. Yeah? We have left that single backbone monolithic one processor out, and now we are talking about what is happening in this landscape of the internet. So you have got single symmetric multiprocessors for transaction oriented applications going up to 32 processors in one unit is available on the net, and people are exploiting it. Now these small processors can be used to model, these small processors can be used to model new age architectures or computers. We are leading to mega computers, right? Beyond 2012, and that's going to happen. People who are researchers, they already know it's happening, right? So the mega computer is basically like something like this. It contains millions rather than dozens and hundreds of processors, right? And in the next year or so, the single processor performance has almost hit the limits for the three explanations which I gave you, right? And perhaps the word I coined, mega computer, may be the only technology which will be able to deliver and give you such quantum jump in terms of performances, right? Now, the question is that if mega computers are simply parallel computers, then how can they overcome this Amdahl's law, and how can they overcome the Gustafsson-Bars's speed-up law? This is a technical question, but not to worry about that. Next. So the key to that answer is that the mega computer performance scales on what is called as throughput versus load, right? It scales on the bet of throughput versus load. That means number of transactions per second, right? Rather than trying to take the complete elapsed execution time and the number of processors. This is the basic difference. Earlier we had all those things for one monolithic computation, and then we had, here they are parallel, right? But at the same time they are not parallel. Now the reason is that the performance of these uncoordinated, distributed and parallel computers is based on the fact that it is measured in terms of piecemeal response. It is measured based on piecemeal response to a series of small requests, because that loading is nonlinear, right? So therefore it is measured based on piecemeal requests, right? Piecemeal response for a series of requests, instead of having one monolithic answer which follows a massive computation. Now I'll give an example of this. Now this is exactly the different kind of computing model, right? One that works on burst mode. I coined the term, one that works on burst mode rather than on bulk mode. One monolithic computation or massive computation, right? So therefore, the best example for this is this. If you open the website of Google or you open the website of Yahoo, you can see small programs which actually are reactive, small, composite, fast, they open quickly, and they open